Hi guys, Steady Eddie here, this time with a question. Have you ever been to South America? And when you were there, did you get robbed? I almost did, once. Only once. Stay tuned and I'll tell you about it in this video. Well, I hope all's well with everyone in these very dark and uncertain times. Let's face it, 2020 has turned out to be a very strange year. I think we've all got to just keep thinking positive. Many of us are wondering when it's going to be safe or appropriate to start traveling again. All I know is that it will happen, just not quite sure when. So, enough of that. In this video, I want to talk about robbery. Not a pleasant subject to talk about, but a very important one. Now, as many people who watch this channel will know, I focus mainly on Southeast Asia. So there's robbery, street muggings or whatever occur in countries like Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. Well, I suppose they do, but thankfully it's very rare. A far more notorious part of the world, still very popular with travellers, is South America. Now, this is a fantastic continent with the most amazing cultures and landscapes you will ever see. Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, they're the most marvellous countries to travel through, and I always used buses because I didn't want to miss out on all that wonderful scenery. But South America also carries with it a terrible reputation for violent crime. Brazil especially has had a bad reputation for many years. Fantastic country, I loved it, but to many people who have never been there, it's a no-go country. You can't go walking around there or you'll get mugged. How many times have you heard that? Well, of course it's not true. I spent 6 months travelling around South America and I walked everywhere, day and night. Look, let's be realistic. We've all heard the stories about people being mugged, kidnapped, eaten by cannibals. Yes, seriously, I've heard that one. And it's enough to frighten anyone who's thinking of going there. Brazil? You can't go to Brazil. My friend went to Brazil and he got mugged even before he stepped off the plane. Really? Maybe it was the air hostesses who mugged him. Come on, a lot of it is pure nonsense. Some of the stories you hear are taller than the Christ in Rio. And they always seem to be second, third or fourth hand information. Listen, whenever you hear about these stories, was it the person who was telling you this? Did it really happen to him personally? Or was it his friend's cousin's brother-in-law that this happened to? Well, once information gets passed along, you know how distorted it gets. So, after many years of dreaming about travelling to this amazing continent, I finally got around to it about 10 years ago. I'd already travelled to some of these Central American countries, but I needed to go to South America, and the best way of doing it was booking a 6-month return flight to Rio. That's right, from Rio I went south, down Argentina way, and then right back up north through Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador and Colombia, before heading back into Brazil for an Amazonian adventure. Fantastic, I loved it. Wouldn't swap those memories for anything. So how do you plan for a journey like this? Well, back then I didn't use the internet that much. In those years of planning to do travel like this, I read guidebooks. And over the years, the one which I looked at the most was the Lonely Planet guide. Well, back then I loved the Lonely Planet guide. There were other guidebooks around, but Lonely Planet was so readable. It wasn't just informative, it was fun to read and look at the pictures. Once I buried my head into the Lonely Planet guidebook, you couldn't get me away from it. All those years of dreaming of travelling to those places were coming alive as I turned the pages of this guidebook. Well, for years this book had given me so much advice about Asia and also the Central American countries, so now it was time to break the big, exciting continent of South America. Well, I'd heard South America was huge and had so many great landscapes and that it was great value overall. But what about safety? Here we go again. As soon as you mention countries like Brazil and Colombia, you hear the armchair experts spouting off their doom and gloom. But I needed to hear the advice about safety from experts, and in the Lonely Planet Guide, this comes under the Dangers and Annoyances section. Whatever country, whatever town you will visit, Lonely Planet will review what it has to offer and then tell you how likely you are to get mugged, robbed, scammed, whatever. It's essential reading because there's no point planning anything if you don't feel like you're going to be safe there. Now, what was interesting about the Dangers and Annoyances section was that I read of a robbery tactic that I'd never heard of anywhere else other than South America. Remember, my big 6-month South American adventure was years in the planning, and I'd read many editions of The Lonely Planet over the years. And in each one, I'd heard of the same robbery tactic. This is one where you were walking through the town, doing your touristy thing, and carrying your backpack, which will probably contain your cameras and other valuables. So you were walking through this busy touristy area when, splat, suddenly you are hit with some unpleasant, gooey liquid substance, which could be anything from spit or slime. And this vile whatever it is goes on your backpack, shorts, legs, whatever. So what happens then? Well, some friendly people will appear and offer to clean you down. Of course, this involves you removing your backpack. And when you remove your backpack, you will then realise that these friendly, helpful people are not really that friendly and helpful. They were actually the accomplices of the thief who was lurking in an alleyway, who was waiting to grab your backpack and run like hell with it. Now, I never heard about this robbery tactic occurring in other parts of the world, but time and time again I read about it in the Lonely Planet South American guidebooks. It seemed to be very much a South American thing. So anyway, how did my big South American adventure go? Well, it was simply marvellous. I began in Rio, the marvellous city, before travelling by overnight buses down through Argentina, then back up north through Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, before finally heading back into Brazil and through the mighty Amazon River. Wonderful. So how safe was all of this? Well, fine. I walk everywhere. I was able to walk around day and night and without a real problem. Of course, you have to be cautious, especially at night, but that goes without saying. You've got to do that anywhere. In South America, I never had a real robbery problem, except on one occasion. It was in Quito, Ecuador, well into the second half of my South American adventure. And I suppose, having walked around Brazil and all those other countries without a problem, I was kind of getting a bit complacent. All those stories about muggings simply weren't true, or so it seemed. Now, Quito is the capital of Ecuador, not one of the more well-known South American countries, but with a beautiful landscape for sure. And Quito, I have to say, is a damn fine-looking city. I mean, in terms of its looks, it must be one of the most underrated South American cities. It has so many towering churches and other historical buildings, and the old town has real character to it. Quito sure is a nice place. So I'm wandering around Quito, taking plenty of photos and a few videos. It was a Saturday afternoon and there was so much going on. Lots of people around, as you would expect, and I was carrying my backpack. Not my main luggage, just a bag that contained cameras and all I need for a day walk around the city. Really enjoying this fine looking city, most pleasant place to be, didn't have a care in the world until splat. What the hell was that? Well, whatever it was green liquid, it was slimy, and it was dribbling down my backpack, my shorts, my legs. There I was having a nice little walk around Quito's charming town centre, and then I was splashed. And you know what I thought? In that very, very first second, I thought, this is it. This is the robbery tactic that I'd read about so often in the Lonely Planet Guide. And true to the book, there were people nearby waiting to offer help. I looked to my left and there was a chubby woman and another female. Both of them had big grins on their faces. They were saying something, you know, it was obviously offering help. Well, I decided it wasn't the time to practice my Spanish. But all as I did know is that I couldn't see him, but I just knew that there was an accomplice waiting there in that alleyway, ready to grab my bag and run like hell with it. So, following the Lonely Planet guidebook advice, I got the hell out of there. No hanging around, no words, no cursing, nothing. I had this slimy green liquid dribbling down my back, and I just had to move, get out of that location, and you know, wait till I got to a safe one before I even attempted to start cleaning it off. So I managed to cross the road to get away from these people, but you know what? They weren't going to give up easily. I was walking briskly for about 10 metres on the other side of the road when I heard voices behind me. I turned around and here's this grinning chubby woman, still saying something in Spanish. No way, missus. I walked another 10 metres or so and then, I heard more voices and there she was again. And she wasn't the only one that was visible this time. I glanced across the road and there he was. A young man was pointing over to this grinning woman. He was saying something in Spanish. I'm pretty certain that he was saying, she'll help you. And, I thought, yeah, sure she will. And I'm quite sure that you'll offer to lend a hand as well. There was no doubt about it. He was the invisible man who had been lurking in the nearby alley, ready to rob my bag. They obviously weren't used to failure. They thought they had one here, and they weren't going to give up too easily. Well, I just kept walking and until I eventually, glanced around and they weren't there anymore. I found a safe little spot to clean myself down and finally, remove my backpack. This green slime, what was it? It looked like, it looked a bit like melted ice cream. I don't know, whatever the hell it was, but it was right down my shorts, my legs. There was a substantial amount of it. Well, whatever it was, it didn't look very pleasant. But at least I'd escaped that one and my belongings were still intact. So that was it. That was the gooey, splashing robbery tactic that I read about so often in the Lonely Planet Guide over the years. After having a good time in South America, I finally come across it in Quito. And I do have to thank the Lonely Planet Guide for that info. So this really begs the question, how different would things have turned out if I'd never read that advice in the Lonely Planet Guide and was unaware of this robbery tactic? Well, remember, just 1 second after that liquid was splashed on me, the advice given in the Lonely Planet Guide sprung to mind and it prevented me from being robbed. I got the hell out of there. But if I'd never have heard that advice, what would the outcome have been then? Would I have hung around? Would I have thought, what the hell was that? Would I have attempted to remove my backpack, which was dribbling with this horrible liquid? Would I have accepted the offer of those grinning couple of women, to clean me down? I don't really know what would have happened, but I suppose it's quite possible. And if I had to remove my backpack in that crowded situation, confused situation, yeah, it's quite likely that I would have been robbed. So the point that I'm making in all of this is that if you're going to travel to adventurous places like South America, don't listen to the armchair experts. Listen to the people who've really been there and experienced these places. Don't accept any information that isn't first hand. And of course, read up on the dangers and annoyances section in the guidebooks. I always think that the people who get robbed in these countries have been so excited about going on that adventure that they haven't really bothered reading up on the potential scams and robbery tactics that exist in those countries. You really do need to read the guidebooks first. Just one final bit of information for you. A while after I completed my South American adventure, I was glancing at TripAdvisor, and I noticed that some guy was banging on about how dangerous South America is, and you couldn't go walking around and you couldn't step out of your hotel without being robbed. And some other guy replied to him that this fellow was talking absolute rubbish. This second guy said that he'd just done 6 months travelling around South America, been to a variety of countries. It sounded like he was doing a similar journey to the one that I'd done. And he said in that 6 months, he'd only ever been robbed once. It was on a crowded bus when somebody had slashed his bag and stole a camera out of it. Well, even being robbed once is bad enough, but what intrigued me about it is that it was the same place. It was Quito in Ecuador. Anyone who's planned on travelling around South America, going to a variety of countries, may want to consider that. Okay, so I'll wrap this one up. I'll say thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if it's been useful. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. A big thanks to those who already have. Have a great day, a great evening at whatever you're doing, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Aquí.
Yeah, I just want to prove. I just want to prove that I do not spend my entire time travelling, sitting at pavement cafes, guzzling beer after beer. I do actually do some physical activity as well. Thank you.